There are currently 4 Americans aboard the International Space Station. We would have to rely on other countries, like Russia, who doesn't seem to be too fond of us right now because we're helping Ukraine in the war, to help bring them back.
Political bear nation ready to dive, where opinions spark and the debates thrive. Hold on tight.
Hey guys, it's Brown Chubby Bear for Political Bear Nation. I had a completely different video planned for today's release, but after the explosive fallout between Trump and Musk, I stopped editing that video and started working on this one, especially after I received multiple messages from viewers asking if I can cover it. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the tweets and comments exchanged between both of them because I'm sure most of you already are aware of what was said. I will touch on a few of them. So feel free to use the chapters below if you want to skip ahead to the good stuff. This video is really going to focus on the financial, political, and national security implications of their very public divorce, especially now that Trump has threatened to cancel all of Elon's government contracts. So how did we get here? Elon Musk was becoming increasingly frustrated with Trump's big, beautiful bill. A few days ago, he tweeted, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong, you know it." Now, Trump remained conspicuously quiet about Musk's comments. Usually he'd come up with a nickname and start throwing shade from his social media platform that no one but him uses. But Trump finally addressed the issue on Thursday during a press conference with the German chancellor.
Well, look, I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible.
He went on to claim that Elon's opposition to the big, beautiful bill stemmed from the cuts to EV subsidies.
Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and which was a lot of money for electric vehicles, and they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles, and they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy.
Now, to be fair to Musk, he has previously advocated for the elimination of EV subsidies. But at the same time, Tesla has benefited significantly from government support. According to the Washington Post, Tesla has received more than $11 billion in regulatory credits from the federal and state governments. This includes $2.1 billion in federal funds to develop new EVs and batteries, as reported by the advocacy group Good Jobs First. Since 2014, a third of Tesla's $36 billion in profits have come from selling federal and state regulatory credits to other automakers. And Tesla has also received nearly $800 million from the Energy and Treasury departments since 2007. That's a lot of money there. But in any case, Trump made a big threat. And he said the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was surprised that Biden didn't do it. Now, Musk didn't take that lying down. He called for Trump to be impeached and replaced by Vice President J.D. Vance, and alleged that Trump's name appeared in the Epstein files, suggesting that's why they were never released. Yes, Elon, Trump's bestie and former ally, called Trump a PDF. And that's where we'll start. I've been advocating to decouple Elon Musk from the American government for quite some time now, but even I recognize that it needs to happen gradually. Abrupt changes to something so embedded in the government would disrupt America's national security infrastructure, space capabilities, and technological leadership. SpaceX's ventures with NASA, the Department of Defense, and intelligence agencies are worth tens of billions of dollars. And it affects everything from humans going to space, cargo resupply, deep space exploration, and military launches. There are about $22 billion in SpaceX government contracts that hang in the balance because of this feud. The Dragon capsule is a great example of how much we rely on Elon Musk, unfortunately. The Dragon capsule is currently NASA's workhorse for the only human spaceflight that is capable of transporting astronauts to and from the ISS. NASA solely relies on Elon Musk's SpaceX Dragon, especially after the Boeing Starliner program fell behind. Recently, 2 NASA astronauts were stranded on the ISS for months when their Boeing capsule malfunctioned. A Space Dragon brought them home. Elon threatened to withdraw the Dragon from service, Not only does it threaten NASA's primary access to the ISS, it also raises safety concerns for the astronauts that are currently in orbit, and it forces NASA to scramble for alternatives. Former NASA Deputy Administrator Lori Garver said a rogue CEO threatening to decommission spacecraft, putting astronaut lives at risk, is untenable. There are currently 4 Americans aboard the International Space Station. We would have to rely on other countries, like Russia, who doesn't seem to be too fond of us right now because we're helping Ukraine in the war, to help bring them back. The Dragon ISS transport contract represents about $5 billion of the $22 billion that I just mentioned. There's also the contract for Elon's Starship to land astronauts on the moon this decade under NASA's Artemis program. Now that's worth about $3 billion. Then there's the launch of NASA satellites and science missions via SpaceX's Falcon 9. And that's a huge part of this total. That accounts for $15 billion of the $22 billion in contracts. So that's a big one. Then there's also the contract that I discussed in my last video about Palantir and Peter Thiel. If you missed that video, I will link to it at the end of this one, but you definitely need to watch it. But in case you missed it, that contract is worth $5.9 billion. These are national security satellites that the Pentagon Space Force program wants to launch between now and 2029. That's nearly $6 billion, and it covers 28 individual missions, and it would cripple the Space Force's National Security Space Launch Program. Then there's the $1.8 billion contract to build hundreds of surveillance satellites for the National Reconnaissance Office. And this divorce doesn't just affect the United States. The Pentagon has contracted with Starlink to provide satellite and communication capabilities for Ukraine's military operations against Russia. Now, there are a couple other options like United Launch Alliance and Blue Origin, but both of them lack the proven record of reliability to immediately absorb SpaceX's mission load. Again, I'm all for decoupling Elon Musk from the federal government, but not like this. The government would face contract termination penalties and significantly higher costs from the alternative providers who lack SpaceX's economies of scale and reusable rocket technology. Then there's the Golden Dome Missile Defense Initiative, valued at $175 billion, representing Trump's signature defense technology project. SpaceX was supposed to function as a primary satellite constellation provider for the satellite network. Now that's fundamental to the system's architecture, but this is one of the contracts I would be happy to scrap right away. Personally, I think it's a waste of government spending right now, especially since the technology isn't quite there. But this was Trump's signature defense proposal. He's making threats that go against his own interests and his own promises. Whether or not these two figure out how to work together despite their very public divorce is anyone's guess. I could see Peter Thiel fixing the relationship between them because, after all, he convinced Trump to make J.D. Vance the vice president after J.D. called Trump America's Hitler. So at this point, anything is still possible. But these disruptions are not good for America or investors. Within hours of the threats by Donald Trump, Tesla shares plunged more than 14%, knocking approximately $150 billion off the company's market valuation. Musk personally lost $20 billion on his Tesla holdings. Now, that demonstrates the interconnected nature of his business empire and his government relationships. Listen, I hate to sound like I'm advocating for Elon Musk because I certainly am not. But again, this is not the way to reduce the government's reliance on the billionaire man-child. This conflict feeds directly into Trump's reputation for unpredictability. It shows him willing to intervene in federal contracts for completely personal reasons. This could spook other businesses later down the road, and the feud raises questions about the stability of Trump's policymaking. The thing about the Elon Musk and Donald Trump breakup is that anyone who is paying attention, even the tiniest bit of attention, could have seen this coming from a million miles away. See, Trump has this pattern. He finds someone useful, someone who can do his dirty work, or bankroll the things he wants, and then, the moment they disagree with him, or become a liability, he cuts the cord and runs them over with the bus. And then he throws the bus in reverse just to make sure they're dead. Here's a short list of all the people who've learned this the hard way. Paul Manafort. He was Trump's campaign manager during one of the most critical stretches of the 2016 campaign. The guy helped orchestrate the Republican National Convention for free. Well, at least on paper. But when reports surfaced about Manafort's deep financial ties to pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarchs, Trump ghosted him. When Manafort resigned and then got slapped with federal charges in the Mueller probe, Trump didn't even blink. Manafort ended up with 73 months in prison. Trump didn't lift a finger for him. Steve Bannon, the guy who practically wrote the America First playbook. He was Trump's chief strategist and the brains behind the most effective parts of Trump's early agenda. You know, let's hate all the immigrants, let's build a wall, Muslims suck, all that stuff, that's straight out of Bannon's playbook. But Bannon did something that really pissed Trump off. He said that Trump's kids talking to Russian agents was a little bit treasonous, and you can't really blame him for saying that. He also called Ivanka dumb as a brick. I mean, you can't really blame him for that either. But nonetheless, as soon as he said those things, he was out of the circle. Trump said Bannon had lost his mind, and Bannon ended up serving 4 months in jail, defying a congressional subpoena. Now, Trump did eventually pardon him in 2021, but he did not do the same for his co-defendants. In fact, that pardon was one of the very last things Trump did in office. Michael Cohen, Trump's longtime personal fixer, the guy who arranged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. For a decade, Cohen lived and breathed Trump's secrets. For a decade, he helped him. And when Cohen got caught, he assumed loyalty would be returned, but it wasn't. Trump dropped him like a MAGA hat at a pride parade. By the way, happy Pride Month, everyone. Cohen served 3 years in federal prison and got disbarred in New York State. The only person shocked by that betrayal was Michael Cohen. Jeff Sessions. Remember when he became the first sitting senator to endorse Trump back in 2016? That's a pretty huge deal. Trump rewarded him by making him the attorney general. But then Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation because of a small thing called ethics. And predictably, Trump got very, very angry. He called Sessions every name in the book, mocked him endlessly, and finally pushed him out of the White House. Trump even said he would never have picked Sessions if he knew he would have recused himself. And he said that he felt betrayed. Yes, Donald, everyone's always betraying you. You're the victim. Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, former ExxonMobil CEO, the supposed adult in the room. Well, he lasted until he publicly disagreed with Trump over the Iran nuclear deal. Now, Rex supported it. Trump obviously did not, because that was something that Obama did. Trump responded by calling Rex dumb as a rock and lazy as hell, which, again, is rich coming from a guy who spends most mornings live tweeting Fox and Friends. But remember, Trump only hires the best people, folks. Only the best people. Listen, I could keep going. In fact, the video I was supposed to release today, it's all about Leonard Leo, the conservative kingmaker who helped Trump stack the Supreme Court with 3 very far-right justices. Trump adored him before, but now Trump trashed him on Truth Social because some of the judges that Trump has nominated haven't ruled in his favor 100% of the time. To Donald Trump, the moment you stop serving his personal interests, you're no longer part of the plan, you're part of the problem. I've worked for people like this. In fact, one person comes to mind. Back in my 20s, I had a boss who always had a golden child. He always had someone that he held up in front of everyone and said, be more like them. Until that person did something wrong or disagreed with them. And then boom, they're dead to him. On to the next one. This is classic narcissism with a loyalty complex. And that's Trump. That's his entire life. A rotating door of enablers, each one eventually discarded and replaced. So where does that leave this Trump-Elon feud? Honestly, I don't really know. But I do think Peter Thiel is going to try to fix this. He has every incentive to do so, both financially and ideologically. Peter Thiel knows how to manipulate Donald Trump. And with Elon's money, he could get this administration to greenlight whatever techno-fascist plan he dreams up next. He's going to try to do it. We'll see soon enough. Well, that's it for today, folks. If you haven't seen my video about Palantir and Peter Thiel's grip on the U.S. military, go check it out. It's wild and it's a must-watch. And also, subscribe so you can catch Monday's video about Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. Until next time, this is Brown Chubby Bear for Political Bear Nation.
Where the stories collide, political bears on an untamed ride, roaring through truths, the left and the right, setting the stage for a wild insight. Political Bear Nation.